Hey, I'm Sean Selby, and I'm just making a real quick video, and it's going to go over the different types of virtual assistants that you could use for doing all sorts of different tasks. So, we're going to go over the different roles and the different tasks that they could do. And this is specifically for people who are like house wholesalers, land flippers, or even house flippers. So, this is for people that need virtual assistants to take some of their workload off, or if they're wanting to scale their business and be able to do more deals and they need to get back additional hours out of their week in order to do those things. It basically, like, I put together this short list here, but it's pretty unbelievable of just how many different types of roles that you could fill. And this can be anywhere from people that have no experience and then you train them yourself, or you buy training and then you have them to go through that. And then you can also find people with experience in these things. Like, for instance, when you're posting jobs to online job boards, you can find people who have already worked for house wholesalers or for land flippers, and then you can just hire them. And that makes it a lot easier for you because now you're only training them on your specific methods, but yet they already know how to do a ton of things. The most common thing that people hire virtual assistants for is going to be for marketing and for doing things like property due diligence. Those are both things that we've hired people for in our real estate company. And so, they can do anything from they could be a property researcher. They could do any kind of lead generation. I've currently got two data analysts on my team, and one of those also does a lot of data management for the company. As you know, pretty much all real estate companies, one of the biggest things that they have to do is, like data management and data buying, and then also researching where to buy the data. And it makes it so much easier when you have virtual assistants. In fact, that does not even begin to state how important they are. In a busy month, we may buy 50,000 rows of data for our real estate company. And, there's been times where you might need 100,000 rows in order to keep up with for marketing purposes. And so when you figure like how many hours it would take one person to research where you're going to buy the data, and then also the buying of it, and then the scrubbing of it, and also further scrubbing if you were to ever look at it like property by property. And of course, the reason like we've done that in the past is because it lowers our marketing cost if we can get rid of things like that. So for me, it's been the data analytics team has been incredibly important. Also, property researcher. Once a property comes across our table and we think we're going to move forward with it, the amount of due diligence that they can do for us by calling the county or calling the city and, checking on the zoning of the property and just doing anything necessary to make sure that, it really is a property without defects and that it's something that we would want. Now, transaction coordinators, that's become a huge deal, and they handle, a tremendous amount of stuff. So they can handle anything from communication with, if you're using real estate agents, they can handle communication between the sellers and you, and also between like you and the title companies, dealing with sellers, buyers on both ends, because it depends on your business model as well. Like, some people use real estate agents, some people sell properties themselves. It really is all over the place on stuff like that. But that kind of gives you, some ideas. And we have had transaction coordinators as well, and that was like game changing with them handling emails and just all sorts of things. And then they follow up with us because they can also do due diligence as well. And and that's like a non-issue. Now, project managers, we have also got it to where one of our data analysts does project management and data management. And when you hire people who have like a 4-year degree, and like I'm talking about one of the people that I have on my team as an example, they've got a 4-year degree. They've also worked in the corporate world, and they have, several years of experience there. And so they're very accustomed to everything has to be done according to like the systems and procedures that they have to follow in that company. And so when it's like when I'm hiring for something that I don't know how to do myself, to me, it's incredibly important that they come already with knowledge from previous job experience. So that way they're way ahead of what I would need. And, they've passed what I know. And then that way I can put my trust into them to focus on, the really important stuff, which is trying to get more deals and things like that. Now, if you're selling the properties without a real estate agent, like for instance, we do land, just rural vacant land. And for us in the past, they have been able to list properties, and like Facebook, used to, they would list them on eBay and Craigslist for people, like I've heard. We've never done that because like as of now, it's not effective like it used to be. And since we're in the land flipping business, now is what I like to do is I like to work directly with agents when I sell the properties. When I buy it, we buy it off market and we just buy it ourselves. We find a title company and we can close on it without real estate agents. So that's just kind of some examples. Marketing, it really does. I mean, it's all over the board on this. For marketing purposes, they can take care of like all the data task and determine things like market research for where you're going to go. They can handle getting campaigns ready for direct mail. Basically, you name it and they can do it. They can be cold callers. Of course, cold texting isn't legal. I know that people do that, and they do hire virtual assistants for this. Of course, I don't advocate for it, and I don't send cold texts either just because of the legalities of it. Now, when it comes to marketing, and if you was to have them send things that are text messages to where you have permission, like they've already contacted your office, and if you've gotten permission through your marketing, like on your website, to where they've opted in to where they can accept like text messages, you can have them text message follow-ups, things like that. They could also put together things like marketing campaigns that's through email, as long as the emails aren't cold. Social media managers, that is a huge thing as well. They can do Facebook marketing to get properties sold. There are also house wholesalers that are running Facebook campaigns in order to buy houses. In marketing in general, they can do copywriting. They can do anything from graphic design to helping with websites, doing SEO for websites. They can manage pay-per-click if you were to be using something like Google. Now, the only thing that I would advise is if you are hiring someone to do stuff like this, you just are having to make sure that they know how to do it properly, or you're going to need some way to just check on the work. So however that would need to be done. So you either need to know what you're having them to do, or you need a way to test their work. So I will just say stuff like that, because as virtually everybody knows, pay-per-click can be incredibly expensive on, like every click can cost $10, $20 or $30. I hear of attorneys and stuff like that paying, over $200 a click on Google. So you got to know what's going on. So, because if you hire someone to do something like this where they could lose a lot of money fast, that's just like a warning for you. They can do things like email marketing, tasks like that. There's these are CSRs. Pretty much anything that can be done on the phone, a virtual assistant can do. CRM manager. Now, some of these roles that we're looking at right here, you would probably have a team of people doing stuff like this. Now, if you were to be something like a real estate agent, and you've got someone who's a virtual assistant and they're doing your data entry, and then they're also updating your CRM for you and things like that, It's entirely possible to have a generalist virtual assistant who is going to handle things like CRM, other data entry. They're going to handle your email. You could even just, when you're hiring, that person may even be responding to an ad for a data entry clerk and stuff like that. Or it could be a real estate virtual assistant, and they're just a generalist virtual assistant. And we, inside of our programs and with the people that we work with, we'll discuss things like, titling the job post so that way they get the perfect candidate. Because you don't want to title it something and then all of a sudden you're not getting applicants that are going to fit that job role. That's like hugely important. Okay. They could be a market researcher. Again, if you was to have a large team, we've had it to where we've had 6 and 7 people, and we'll have someone handling market research for sometimes days or a week at a time. And this has been incredibly important for us to research like what counties, what states we're going to go to. And they'll put together data for us and fill out whole spreadsheets so that way we know where properties are being bought and sold. And we make sure that we're going to go to a county that has a good, fast sales through rate, stuff like that. They can also handle things like title searches. Now, this is going to be more for land people. I've actually had virtual assistants when I first started out do title searches for me and even draft deeds where I could buy properties myself with no title company. And, I don't want to do that anymore because I'm dealing with properties that cost way too much money for me to feel comfortable with that. But I have done self-closes in the past. And, that was something that they could do, and they could do it well. In fact, my first 8 properties I self-closed on, and we didn't have any problem when we closed them with title companies to get them sold. There was no errors out of those. Okay. Permit and zoning. Now, we have had our virtual assistants do quite a lot of this, and we just tie that together usually with our whoever's doing the due diligence. They'll check into things like this. Is where stuff like this gets incredibly important is if you're going to ever try to change the zoning of a property, they can do your preliminary checking and go get you things like county regulations, city regulations. They can go and find stuff like that. And it works really great because now they can take a huge load off of what you're doing by just going and doing research that could potentially take 30 minutes to 2 or 3 hours at a time per task that you give them. And we've had properties to where, it might take someone 3 or 4 hours to get us all of the information from the county. And so imagine, if you were to, lose half a day to something like that versus hiring a virtual assistant. And they can also handle all kinds of bookkeeping, accounting type stuff. I would, of course, always run this by a CPA, but there are a tremendous amount of people hiring accountants, for instance, overseas, like in the Philippines, as an example. That's where my virtual assistants live. Just have a CPA make sure that everything is done, but at least they could do it cheaper than you could get done somewhere else. And then also just generalist administrative assistants. Okay. Data entry for us has been huge. Like I tell people all the time, a lot of the time, I don't even look at us as being a real estate company. It seems like for sometimes weeks at a time, we're really more of a data company because the data is so important and how much data we're always having to buy and then to scrub and to review for marketing purposes to make sure that we don't go and market and spend unnecessary marketing dollars where we shouldn't be at. Okay, so, any kind of lead generation stuff, we covered things like that. They can also handle any kind of appointment scheduling, buyer and seller communication, CRM updates, and you can also have it to where, like at the end of the day, they can update the CRM and just make sure, like for instance, if they're cold callers, they'll be keeping track of stuff every call. They'll be marking if that call answered or not, and they can leave notes and stuff, of course. And some of the dialers will also take note. But then when it comes to important leads, they can update that every day or at lunch and then at the end of their day. Things like that's incredibly important. If you're selling properties yourself, they can handle a tremendous amount of your listing management, keeping up with social media postings and things like that. You can even give them the cadence that they're going to have to use when posting properties for sale, stuff like that. They can handle websites and stuff, but I would definitely say if you're right now a solo entrepreneur, you're probably not going to be hiring someone to do things like this, like keeping up with website or even potentially social media. A lot of the time, you're going to be bringing on a generalist virtual assistant or just some kind of data entry personnel, and you're going to give them the easiest task oftentimes because they're easy to learn. That helps you be able to look, and then it gives you the chance to learn how to teach a person, but it's the easiest task possible. And I would never recommend giving someone a whole bunch of different tasks that aren't associated with one another until they've gotten comfortable in the job role that you've given them. So I wouldn't have my data analyst building a website and doing copywriting and then trying to do bookkeeping and then also do cold calling. Like, it's just too much. You want, like, for instance, when we brought on our first data analyst, it was like, hey, we just need you to stay in the data department and then do these couple of tasks like data management and then data scrubbing, just very few tasks. And it all revolved around what a data analyst would already be doing. And then as they get comfortable and stuff, then you can kind of give them some more things to branch out. But I'm just saying, always be careful doing that so that you don't overwhelm the person. They can do a lot of, like Canva, marketing materials design. Canva is used by virtually everybody on social media for graphics design now. Tons of email stuff. They can handle a newsletter. For instance, real estate agents might want some kind of a social media manager, and then they could do things like this in their email marketing. So that's been a big deal for like real estate agents. We've already talked about all this kind of stuff, bookkeeping, expenses. They can do a lot of form preparation. And like I said, they used to actually create the deeds that we used to buy and sell land when we would self-close. They can even draft things like a contract, and then you could just have an attorney review their work, and it would probably be a lot cheaper to do something like that. So like I said, with ours, we have a data analyst that also does data management. So it's amazing that they can keep track of all your files, because when you're doing lots of data for marketing or other things, it's really important to have a virtual assistant that does not mind following a process and then following a set system like your SOP. And then you got to make sure that they're organized. They can do any kind of customer support. It is pretty crazy of just how many gigantic companies use overseas remote workers. I mean, basically all of like the phone companies, a lot of the retail companies, when you call into their customer service, they're going to be a lot of them from India, the Philippines, Venezuela, pretty much you name it. As long as they've got an industry there that's even similar to, just being able, like the BPO industry, that's what they're doing in order to save money, because it is so much cheaper to find someone overseas to do customer support than it is to hire enough Americans. Okay, market research, hugely important for us. They can also do, there's been a lot of people doing rentals, and they use virtual assistants to help them with all kinds of stuff, from like the due diligence, just like everybody needs, but also even scouting out individual houses. So you could give them incredibly tight like specs on houses. Like they can look for just like the square footage, how many bathrooms, and then they can even do things and niche down just like what you would. You just kind of give them that criteria, and then they're going to look for just the probate properties. So just, they have to be houses. And then also they can go and look for things like probate, delinquent taxes. If you can do it, they can do it, is what I always try to tell people. Pretty much some of this stuff, still design, KPI tracking. It could even be something to where if you hired a person and they couldn't create a dashboard for you, you could even just go and get a software with the dashboard, or you could buy a template and then just explain to them what KPIs are important, and then they can actually track them for you. Most data analysts, I mean, like all of them that I could imagine, they can all create a dashboard. So getting a dashboard created is very easy, and you can buy those online from people that do like Excel templates. That's a very easy thing to buy if you don't want like a monthly expense for it. Our data analysts, they create our KPI dashboards for us. Yeah, so they can do all kinds of stuff like this. As long as you've got a notification that you're getting an online review, you can have them respond to stuff like that. Let's see. We've had ours do things like this in our data analytics department, and they'll check on like where your competitors buying, what types of properties are they buying, and you can do stuff like that to see. I wouldn't want to copy anybody perfectly, but at least you can see sometimes like, hey, this person is very successful here, and what types of properties are they having success in? That's something that you can do. Now, some of this stuff, you might have a team of 5 or 10 before you would even consider getting some of this stuff. Kind of like project timeline management. I mean, you're probably not going to have one virtual assistant doing some of these things. Things like progress reporting, trend research. Like we have even, ventured into this stuff right here with when they're doing market research. We kind of see like, hey, what are buyers buying after the rates changed? Like, what is the size of property they're buying? What is the price range? And has the demographic changed at all? And so, they're also researching things of that nature as well. Okay, and the SOPs is just something that is incredibly important. Having someone that can keep organized for me has been incredibly important. And that is because I am not good at organization. That's why I want virtual assistants that far surpass what I can do. So I can just tell them, hey, this is the problem I've got. Can you tell me how we should fix it? And then I let them fix it and stuff like that. And they'll advise me on that. It goes back to landlords on having them do things to check up on tenants, tenant communication, maintenance coordination, seller lead follow-up. That's a big one for people. I mean, that would be, if you got someone to handle your marketing work, I mean, that's going to be like right up there on the top of the list of most important things that they could be doing. You could teach them how to find a cash buyer list in your data. And then now every time that you go to a new area, you now could just have them trained on that and then just tell them, hey, I need a cash buyers list for this area. And they would be able to go and do that. And that's the beauty of having an SOP for your company. And it's very easy to get them to now know exactly what to do. Title search, closing documents. That's all part of transaction coordination. Same thing with the escrow funds. A lot of this is, if you'll notice, it's very repetitive. And you could just put a ton of this stuff under just handling communication between all the different parties that are interacting with your company. So, getting testimonials, I think that could at some point be really important once you become a good enough sized company. Keeping up with your case studies. And see, just like when you're buying the data, it's really great once your assistants are all trained. And it's so easy to just, when you're chatting with them, to assign them their tasks for the day or for the week or month. When you've kind of got it all laid out, it's so easy to just tell them, hey, we're going to this area, and then I need to know the tax delinquents. And you can actually have them buy your data for you. We actually got to a point to where, like, I didn't buy the data anymore for the company. I had someone to do that. I just had to load the credits into my data provider. And then I just made sure on the permissions, I just allowed them to only spend, what I allocated to them. I'd give them a budget of $200, $500, $600 at a time. They would spend that. And then they just have meetings with me. And then I just see, what they spent their money on, and then I can see the data for myself and make sure everything looks good. For us, this is huge. We do a ton of direct mail. And so I actually do the talking between me and the mail house, but they do completely do the entire list. So from buying the data to scrubbing it to then further scrubbing it, they handle all that kind of stuff for me. Text messages. This one right here, this is not something that I would ever do. It is now illegal to do robo voicemails cold. The only way that you could do this legally, to my knowledge, on things like pre-recorded voicemail drops, and it's like, I am not an attorney, but you would have to have permission from your customers to do this. So I just wouldn't do anything that is illegal, because if you're doing 20,000 of these and 50,000 of these at a time, I'm sure at some point you would get caught. Okay. Yeah, they can do things like networking. I see virtual assistants all the time. They can do outreach to companies to try to find buyers, lenders, pretty much you name it. That they can handle that kind of stuff. Let's see. There is so many tasks here. There's probably 20 or 50 more or 100 more. I don't know. Tasks that they can do. It would be hard for me to even put together a list of tasks of what all ours do, just because it's extensive. They do a lot. So they can even look for private money investors if you was to want to try to create a list, and you just simply show them how to do it once, and then now they can do that for you, especially if you're doing virtual wholesaling or virtual flipping. And so you're doing and testing a lot of different markets. It would be really easy to train them. And then now you just tell them, hey, I need a cash buyers list. I need a private money investor list for this area. They could go and do that for you. Now that's something that you're not going to have to worry about. So as you can see, a lot of this stuff has to do with data. And so, even stuff like contractor sourcing, you could have them find your title companies for you. If you're in a new area, they could bring you back a list of real estate agents that are selling properties there. And then you could pick from the list that they bring you back. Pretty extensive here. And a lot of times, from my own experience of talking to lots of different real estate investors who are basically just running solo, they do not have any idea that they can find people to work anywhere from $2 to say $10 an hour. And of course, if you wanted a transactional coordinator, they had tons of experience and, some of those key type roles. Or for instance, maybe a phone salesperson, they can go for more than $10 an hour. From what I've seen, a lot of times those have kind of a bonus structure in place somehow, but it's still much cheaper than you would ever be able to find someone in the US for. And as long as you make a correct hire, these people, they're going to be incredibly motivated, and they can do anything that can be done with a computer as long as you hire the right person. If you want to train them, that's great. I've certainly trained some myself. And then I've also found people with like previous work experience. I did not have to train them to do that kind of stuff. They came with, a working knowledge already on how to do stuff. That was great. Just depends on what you're looking for. And two, you got to think about it like, well, what is your budget? Are you looking for one person, or are you going to try to hire 2 or 3 or even 5 to build you out something? Like, could be a data department, could be a cold calling department, something of that nature. So you just got to think, do you want to train them? Now you're getting them for cheaper per hour, and now you're having to put in the effort to train them. Or are you going to find people that have already been trained? They come preloaded with knowledge within your industry. So all things to think about. I could never in 30 minutes cover all the other stuff, but basically I just wanted to cover like, hey, what kind of roles can they fill? What kind of tasks can they complete? Just because people who are running solo don't often know. Like, they're usually blown away when I explain to them just what all of our virtual assistants can do for our company. They're kind of in disbelief, like, wow, I never thought about them being able to do that. I kind of thought, and two, even my own wife, after we had virtual assistants, even she kind of mentioned, I did not know what all they could do. I had no comprehension that they could do this much. I mean, when you're talking about them building out, KPI dashboards, and then we're tracking as much data as we are doing things of that nature. Yeah, there's no way I could do it on my own. It would be physically impossible. Even with a small team of, let's say, 5 people, they may be working 1,000 hours a month for you. And even if you have one and they're working about 170 hours a month for you, just think about that, 170 hours. I meet so many people that are working crazy hours in their business. And it's actually crazy to think about, if they was to hire someone for $2, $3, or $5 an hour, if they could get back a few hours out of their day just to go and be able to make it for dinner, or if you're doing it virtually and you're already at home, just imagine you can get out of your home office, a little bit sooner and stuff like that. It is game changing to be able to do things like that. I love not having to work 80 hours a week and things like that in the business, just simply because I can hire virtual assistants to take a huge workload off me. So things to consider. And of course, if you are someone that is wanting help with this, to implement things like this into your business, the link is in the description. You could fill out and select a calendar time to have a phone call with me personally. The only thing is, I do warn people, the only people that I work with, they have to already be in business. This is not a work from home opportunity. It's not a business opportunity. There is no get rich quick scheme here. In fact, putting together all of this stuff is actually hard work. So I always try to get people to understand, you have to own a business, because this isn't like how to make money. This is how to run a real business, and to stop being the solo entrepreneur where you're having to do every single thing for the business. So if you're looking to go from just a job, and I don't mean like a real estate agent, I mean like if you're just at a job and then you're wanting to convert over to real estate, that is not what I help people do. You have to already be in real estate making money, and then you are just wanting to learn the steps and how to do things like SOPs, map out your processes, and all that allows you to go and hire virtual assistants. And another thing is, I am not a recruiting company. So that means that I don't charge fees to go and find people and then like make a profit off of them. That's a huge thing, where there's places in this type of industry to where they'll give you a virtual assistant for $10 an hour, and they're paying their virtual assistant, $5 an hour. They keep $5 profit for themselves, and they'll lock you into things like a contract that might be 6 months. I saw one the other day, and over 6 months, they charge like $6,000 for one virtual assistant. To me, that is like, I cannot imagine hiring a team like what I've had and then trying to pay all those fees. Another thing is about me is I am not a low ticket person. What I help people do is to work on their company. And it is 12 weeks long. I work with people in, it can also be a group setting, but it is from start to finish how to do this. You should seriously, if you have any interest at all, I would seriously recommend checking out the video that I'm going to put in the link in the description as well. And you could check that out. That shows you the complete overview from not just what they do, but from start to finish from SOPs to posting the jobs. We talk about that all the way until you got them hired. And then it starts to where we talk about leading, managing them, and things like that. So if you have any desire to work on your business and stop being the solo entrepreneur, I seriously suggest you go watch that video, and then you book a call if you are qualified and if you're ready to take things to the next level. So thanks for sticking with me this long. I hope you have a great day.